Alright, hi everyone, how's it going? And welcome to another video. Now, I'm pleased to announce that I have another request for a movie review. So, the movie I will be reviewing today is the 1994 film The Crow. Now, again, like I said in the last video, I do have some time available. So if there's a movie you want me to review, something you want me to talk about, maybe something else you want me to do a review of, just let me know in the comments section. And if it's in my wheelhouse, I'll do it. If not, I'll let you know. Anyways, I'm going to talk about the 1994 film The Crow. Now, I saw this when it came out, and I remember not really liking it a whole lot. And I think there were two reasons why I didn't like it. Number one, it is the film where Brandon Lee was killed when they were making it. And number two, it was kind of trendy at the time, and I think that was a turnoff for me. The fact that it was sort of this like trendy film and all that, I think that was part of it. Anyways, I saw it again, and I have to say, I really feel that this film has held up very well. I definitely liked it more watching it all these years later than when I first saw it. It definitely seemed like kind of a breath of fresh air because although there was CGI used in this film, it wasn't overused and it was used in the right way. So I definitely liked that about this movie. Now, just some background on The Crow. The Crow is based on a graphic novel written by an individual by the name of James O'Barr. And James O'Barr is from the Detroit area. And back in the late 70s, he had a girlfriend that he was going to get married to. However, before that happened, she was killed by a drunk driver. And he then joined the military, the Marines. He then got out in 19 or he then got out and around 1981 he was working various odd jobs. He was working mostly as a mechanic. However, he was feeling kind of depressed at the time. So in order to kind of take his mind off of things, he began doing comics and he came up with The Crow. He started in 1981 and he finished in 1989. And almost immediately when this came out, it was in production for a movie. Almost immediately it went into production. And the graphic novel differs from the movie in some ways. I mean, both of them are about the character Eric Draven. However, in the graphic novel, the crow is not an actual crow, it's Eric Draven's psyche. In the movie, it's an actual crow. And the crow plays kind of an important part. But in the graphic novel, that's not the case. Eric Draven is resurrected from the dead after being killed by some thugs, him and his girlfriend. He's resurrected, I believe, a year after he's murdered. However, they never tell you what he is or, what resurrected him. Is he a vampire? Is he a zombie? They never tell you that. And James O'Barr has said that he wanted that mystery. He wanted it to be kind of mysterious. He wanted that mystique. And I've talked about this before, how art definitely benefits from having that mystery sometimes, from having that mystique. And that's what he wanted in his graphic novel. Anyways, the graphic novel was, very violent. A lot of these graphic novels or comic books from independent publishers at the time did tend to be more violent. I mean, they would push the envelope a bit more. So it was very gritty. It had a very gritty feel to it. And the movie does as well. But yeah, the comic probably even more so. And it's like a very violent comic. But yeah, the movie's different because in the movie, Eric Draven and his girlfriend are killed by these thugs the night before they're going to get married. They're going to get married on Halloween, and they're killed. Eric Draven is a guitarist in a band, and like I said, they're both killed. And a year later, Eric Draven is resurrected by a supernatural crow. And he then goes out for revenge. It's your basic revenge story. You had a lot of these like revenge type movies in the 70s where the main character would almost get killed, but not quite. Then the main character would recover and then go after the people that had done that to him. Here, that's the same thing. However, the main character is actually killed. He's then resurrected and he goes after the guys that had killed him and gets into a lot of violent shootouts. When he gets shot, the wounds instantly heal. And like I said, a lot of violent shootouts take place. Now, oftentimes in a lot of these like superhero movies, comic books, a lot of times the henchmen of the bad guy, the bad guy's evil henchmen, a lot of times are these like generic punk rock looking guys. However, that's not the case in The Crow. In The Crow, the bad guys are very believable. They're very sleazy. You just want to see Eric Draven go after these guys because these guys really make you want to hate them. I mean, they're that bad. And, that's what happens. Like I said, Eric Draven goes after these guys. Now, at one point in filming this, Brandon Lee did a scene. It was supposed to be like a dream sequence, from what I understand, where the character of Fun Boy shoots the gun at Eric Draven, Brandon Lee, and what had happened was there was still like a part of a bullet lodged in the gun. When he fired the blank, it shot out. The bullet hit Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee fell to the ground, and supposedly the people on the set thought he was acting at first, but then there was a pool of blood surrounding him, so they immediately got him to the hospital, and 5 hours later, he was pronounced dead. So it's very tragic that this happened. It really is, because I feel had he lived, Brandon Lee would have been a huge star. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, I even feel he probably would have gotten the role of Neo in the Matrix films. I definitely think he would have been a shoo-in for that role. But, yeah, unfortunately that happened, and it was very tragic. And there's been some conspiracies about it. His dad, Bruce Lee, also died in kind of mysterious circumstances, and there's conspiracies surrounding Bruce Lee's death as well. Bruce Lee, I believe the official cause of death was an allergic reaction to aspirin. And, it's strange because Bruce Lee died in 1973. Brandon Lee died 20 years later, 1993. They were both working on what would be their breakthrough films. I mean, they would have been big stars had they lived. And Bruce Lee had just finished Enter the Dragon when he died, and that became a very successful film. And Brandon Lee was just finishing up The Crow when he died, and that, of course, became a very successful film. Now, I know Roger Ebert has said that he felt that The Crow was better than any movie Bruce Lee had ever done. Now, I disagree with that because Enter the Dragon is one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. So I do disagree with that. But yes, it's such a tragedy that this happened. And I might do a video at some point on strange celebrity deaths. But, because, yeah, there are a lot of conspiracies surrounding these deaths, how they died. Was it Chinese triads that had killed them? I mean, just a lot of conspiracies were coming out at the time. I do remember hearing about those. But, anyways, apart from that, the whole set of The Crow, the whole production of The Crow, was known to be very hazardous. There were a lot of accidents on set. I mean, one guy accidentally put a whole screwdriver through his hand, like went through his whole hand. Someone was like on like a crane, and the crane collided with some like power cables, and he was burned badly. There was another stuntman who fell from a building and broke some ribs and got injured pretty badly. And there was even a guy who drove a truck through the set. Now, I don't know if people haven't really been told why this was. Might have been a disgruntled employee. But yeah, he destroyed part of the set when he drove a truck through it. And, Brandon Lee, who was known to be a daredevil at the time, even filed a complaint with the production of The Crow, saying that he felt it was too hazardous. He felt the conditions were very hazardous and very dangerous. So, yeah, it was definitely known for that. From what I know, too, there were even some storms involved where some of the set was destroyed by these storms. Just a lot of things going wrong on the set of The Crow. But, yeah, anyways, getting back to it, in the movie, what does happen is the main bad guy is this guy by the name of Top Dollar, played by Michael Wincott. Now, Michael Wincott was in the Three Musketeers before he did this. He was also in the Robin Hood movie. And he has this like girlfriend or wife in the movie, and she's like into the occult, and she finds out that if you kill the Crow, you could kill the man. You could kill Eric Draven. So they're then trying to go after this Crow, and any pain inflicted on the Crow, Eric Draven will feel. Well, anyways, the whole movie kind of accumulates in this like epic showdown between Eric Draven and this Top Dollar guy on a roof. They're fighting it out. Of course, Michael Wincott is using a sword. I mean, he has to use a sword. I mean, just, using Three Musketeers. You just want to see him use a sword rather than a gun. And Eric Draven is using this, like, weather vane. And eventually, Eric Draven grabs a hold of the head of Top Dollar and transfers all of his pain to Top Dollar, killing him. And a few other things happen. You have Ernie Hudson in this film, from Ghostbusters. Very underrated actor, I believe. But yeah, the whole set of this film is very like dark and dingy. Really has that feel to it. A lot of like gloomy atmosphere. I don't think it's, filmed in the day at all. I don't even know if you see daylight at all in this film. And Alex Proyas was the director on this film. He would also do the film Dark City after this. And that was a more original film. I did a review on that. And in that film, yeah, it's also always dark. So, yeah, this film, always dark, always has that kind of atmosphere to it. Uh, but, yeah, it's kind of interesting because I was thinking about like superhero films. And in the 90s, you had superhero films coming out. Like you had, the Batman films coming out, but you also had a lot of like lesser known superheroes that had movies in the 90s. Like Blade, Spawn, Steel, Darkman, The Shadow, Judge Dredd, The Phantom. There are all these like lesser known superheroes. And The Crow, the Crow's no exception to that. But nowadays it's like a lot of Marvel superheroes, or more DC heroes. The more well known superheroes have movies now. But yeah, another thing I want to say about this film is the soundtrack. It had a very memorable soundtrack, and the soundtrack sold very well. I know Stone Temple Pilots had a song on it that was a pretty big hit. Also, Rollins Band was on the soundtrack. You also had Pantera. You had, I think, Rage Against the Machine was on it. You also had Nine Inch Nails, The Cure. There's a lot of different bands. Like I said, the soundtrack was very popular. Popular soundtrack. And yeah, from what I understand, with the graphic novel, anyways, I guess James O'Barr will still like go to these conventions, and the thing is he'll have like a lot of like goth girls come up and want him to like sign autographs and stuff. So yeah, the Crow has had mass appeal to both men and women. So it's been very popular. I think as of right now, I think it's sold about 700,000 copies. Yeah, quite a few. And there've been talks of rebooting The Crow. Now, I don't think they should do that. And Alex Proyas, the director, feels that that would be disrespectful to Brandon Lee if they were to do that. That would be very disrespectful to him. And yeah, I just don't think the movie needs to be rebooted. It really doesn't. I mean, I know they were planning on having Jason Momoa play Eric Draven, and I don't know, he just doesn't seem like he has the body type for it. Kind of a bigger guy. You need someone like Brandon Lee, someone like him who's more wiry. Brandon Lee had a similar physique to his dad, Bruce Lee. Really fit the way the character of Eric Draven was supposed to look like. But yeah, I know a lot of people don't want the reboot to be made, and I'm one of them. I don't think they should reboot this film at all. I mean, it already was good, and like I said, seeing it a second time all these years later, I liked it more. But yeah, The Crow as a whole had a pretty big impact. I mean, it even had a big impact on professional wrestling. Like Sting, for example. Sting, the pro wrestler from WCW, had this like Southern California surfer gimmick. Then the NWO started. Hulk Hogan turned heel. I forgot what happened. They like threw him out of the ring or whatever, and he went away. But then Sting came back with this like crow gimmick, and supposedly it was Scott Hall, from what I understand, backstage, came up with the idea of this crow gimmick, and Sting decided to go with it, and it definitely worked. I mean, I became a pro wrestling fan again in the second half of the 90s, around 1996 until 2001. And yeah, a lot of it did have to do with the NWO angle and Sting and all that. It was just one of the better angles in the history of pro wrestling. I really thought it was, because it all accumulated in this match between Hulk Hogan and Sting at Starrcade. And the match itself wasn't that great, but the build up to the match was awesome. The build up to the match really was awesome, because Sting would like hide in the rafters. He'd come out with this baseball bat. Sometimes he would have a vulture on his shoulder. And I guess the people who made The Crow in Hollywood didn't sue WCW because they felt it would be good publicity for the Crow franchise. Eventually, however, they did want Sting to change his makeup because eventually they came out with the Sting the Sting Crow action figures, and that's when they asked him to change the makeup, and then I think he wore like red face paint after that. But yeah, apparently kids used to go to these conventions and they would ask James O'Barr about Sting, and he's James O'Barr's not a pro wrestling fan, so he was like, oh, you mean Sting from the Police? But then he found out that there was a pro wrestler named Sting who had a crow gimmick. But yeah, definitely a popular film at the time, and definitely worked for Sting's gimmick. It really did. But yeah, anyways, that's my review of The Crow. Again, if you want me to review another movie, just let me know in the comment section. If it's something I probably wouldn't be able to do, I'll let you know. And if you watch this video, as always, I thank you for watching. Have a good night.